Now, first of all, let's take a minute, if we can, to introduce why we're talking about a Sunday school year. It's very, very important to understand the Sunday school ought to be taken step by step, year by year. I feel very, very strongly that the Sunday school year ought to correspond to the school year that we're used to in our homes already. So we recommend the Sunday school year starts September 1st and go all the way through August 31st. Wait a minute. I know some of you are saying, preacher, our school year starts the second week of August. Somebody else's school year starts the first week of August. There are so many experiments in education. There's no one date that just does everything. You can change the year if you want to, but there's something about September 1st through August 31st, when all the dust is settled, you'll find it'll come back and always work. So we recommend the Sunday school year start at September 1st and go through August 31st. Let me say, by way of introduction, a couple of things that are very important. Because when you recruit teachers, you remember we talked about recruiting them for 1 year. We recruit the teacher for 1 year. That means September 1st through August 31st. Now, I'll show you how we function on this in just a moment when we go through the development of a calendar. But now the teacher begins then, and you say, well, boy, I got this video training series at the wrong time. It's October, or it's January, or it's March. No, doesn't make any difference. You can start and finish out the year and start fresh on the beginning of the next year. It's not like running some, in a school, a concept of like a Christian day school or a public school where you have, we build this and we have to finish this class here. No. You can start the Sunday school January the 1st and then start your new year September 1st. So run it the rest of the year, but make sure you get the training in place, the structure in place, everything thought through before you bring your teachers together and train them and say, now we're going to do this from January through the last of August, then start a brand new year, and we're going to start it off. That means your calendar is going to go from January through August 31st, and then a brand new calendar again, September 1st. Very, very simple to do. Now, that concept is very, very important. And your teachers are recruited again for 1 year. And that is a very important concept because the teachers are not just saying, hey, two things. Number one, a lot of times in recruitment, we make the mistake of telling somebody, I want you to teach Sunday school. And they think, man, I got to do this till the rapture. And they may do it to the rapture. And you may want them to do it to the rapture. But listen, church after church that I'm in holding crusades, I have people that come to me and they say, I've got a teacher I wish I didn't have. How do I get rid of a teacher? That's a pretty negative thing to say to start with, isn't it? How do I get rid of a teacher? But the truth is, maybe the teacher, and I'm going to give you an illustration of this, how to deal with this. But the teacher may be best not to teach. But my concept is this. My commitment to my teachers and workers when I pastor has always been this. Hey, if I recruit you to do this for a year, I'm going to stay with it. And we're going to work together for a year, nothing negative. Now, we may replace that person at the end of the next year. That's the reason the annual Sunday school year works very well. Look in your manuals for just a moment, and I want you to notice with me for just a moment what we call the sample. Look at the page, open it up, your sample typical annual Sunday school calendar. And we're going to run through this, and I'm going to run through it for a whole year, the way it ought to work. Here we go. Put on your thinking cap again, making the notes. By the way, behind that, you're going to have another sheet, which is a blank calendar, where you can develop your own Sunday school year and put it together. But let's look at the way that it ought to work. You'll notice we start off in September 1st, go all the way through August 31st. Now, in September, you notice there's a big day. Every month in your Sunday school calendar that does not have a growth campaign needs one big day. For instance, the month of February. You need a big day in February. I don't have a growth campaign on here. So there needs to be a big day, some emphasis for the Sunday school to help promote the Sunday school. The big day you notice we've got in September is Harvest Sunday. Harvest Sunday. Or some people would call it Back to School Day. You'll change it year to year. So you develop this Sunday school calendar. But notice in February we've got Heart Sunday. That fits right in with Valentine's Day, doesn't it? And so you'll develop these. And then you'll look at December and so on. Now September, then notice in the fall and in the spring, we've got a 5-week growth campaign. A 5-week growth campaign. I'll go over this with you a little bit later and tell you how these work. Notice there is a banquet on the calendar, your typical calendar, the Friday night before the campaign starts. Why is that? So you can get all your workers together. So typically speaking, on this calendar, what we've said is you'll have 2 growth campaigns in a year. You'll have one in the fall, one in the spring. Well, let me get rid of a worry you got. Let me help you with something right now. You need to be on the mailing list of every church that you know of that's doing anything for God. Every church. Be on the mailing list, get every bulletin, get everything. Why is that? Start an idea file. And what you're going to pick up from these churches is what they're doing. They had this campaign, they had this campaign, they had this growth thing, they had this idea. You need this file. Because when you develop this calendar, you're going to have a big day. You're going to have a growth campaign. You're going to have these things to happen. So if you got a growth campaign in the fall and a growth campaign in the spring, 5 weeks for each one, you've got a banquet before every one of these growth campaigns starts. And of course, at this banquet, you'll have a motivational speaker. Make sure the motivational speaker knows what he's doing. I mean by that, you don't want somebody to come in and I want to bring a message on the Trinity. Thank God for messages on the Trinity, but at the banquet, we need a preacher to come in and motivate people to take that campaign and hit a home run with it. Fill up their classes, work hard, have that big day, work for it. So we need this, all right? So now we've done this. We've got a growth campaign in the fall, a growth campaign in the spring. We got a banquet before the fall campaign, a banquet before the spring campaign. All of it's on the calendar. Notice we've got a big day in September, then we got a growth campaign, then we got a big day coming up in December, then January, then February. See how this works? And then you can have a summer theme if you want to. There's nothing wrong with having themes through this. You can change this calendar. Notice on here also, we've got 2 other times that deal with the teacher. Notice in the spring, in April, we've got pre-contracts for teachers and workers. Now, what is that? In the average school that's run very efficiently, all of your school teachers in any school, elementary, high school, I'm talking about now Christian schools or public schools, they have a pre-contract time where the teacher is given a sheet of paper, do you intend to teach here next year? And they can say yes or no. Now, the principal interviews the teacher as to job performance. Notice what we have here, a season, and this is very, very important as a Sunday school director. Please, please note what I'm dealing with here. Boy, this will up the image of your Sunday school, the efficiency of your Sunday school tremendous. Have a pre-contract for all of the teachers. Do you intend to work next year? Yes. Then interview them. Bring them in. God bless you, Sam. I noticed from your attendance, and I noticed from your record of context, because you got it in your hand. We'll tell you how in the next lesson to make sure you have that as a reality. I noticed that, boy, thank God for the great job. And you're wanting to teach next year. I just wanted to have a private minute and thank you. I wanted to thank you. Our next Sunday school year starts September 1st, and we'll have our in-service training time. But I want you to know that you're very special to us. Thank you. Let's have a word of prayer. All right, now, let me talk about the lady. I do not want to give a name here, but I have a lady. I'm going to call her Mary Smith. When I pastored in Grand Rapids, we had a teacher of the year. Taught in elementary, but she never made any contacts. Now go back to your definition of a teacher. That teacher is going to build a relationship through prayer and contacts. Contacts must be made. You say, well, my teacher won't visit. My teacher will not work. They'll not make contacts. Neither did Mary. I'm giving her a fictitious name. Neither did she. So she checked the thing that she'd like to teach next year. She comes in. I pull it up, and I look at it, and I say, Mary, thank you for being a tremendous worker for us this last year. Thank you. You're a tremendous teacher. And I know you're a blessing, and have been to a lot of people. Mary, I notice here, and you know we've talked about this, that you've had a problem making contacts. Now watch this question. Very important. What can I do to help you to overcome this? Now, if she had looked at me and said, listen, I'm going to get back at it, I will do this, glory to God. Then I'd have to make a decision. Am I going to live with her another year or not? Because I'm always staying with them a whole year. But she looked at me, and Mary looked at me, fictitious name. She looked at me and she said, preacher, she said, I just don't fit there making contacts. I just can't do that. And I know that's what drives our Sunday school. And I said, then you understand beginning of next year. She said, do you want a replacement? No. I need you to finish the year. See, we're not trying to run people off. I didn't lose this family. And I was ready for something else. I said, Mary, you're a great teacher. Would you be willing to come to our teacher worker meetings once a week? Would you come when I ask you to and train our teachers how to, and she knew how to teach. Would you train our teachers how to teach flannel graph, other areas? She said, I'd love to. And that became her part of the ministry. I'm trying to communicate something here. It's very, very important to understand we don't have to run people off. We're with the teacher for the whole year. And notice on your calendar at this point, what you've done is you have communicated to this person, I know what you're doing. I thank you for what you have done. What can we do to get a better job done? Do we have to replace the person next year? And then you close with prayer. Always close with prayer. Now notice something else. Jump on your Sunday school calendar to the month of August. And notice at the end of August, we have what we call here an in-service training time. Never, never, never start a Sunday school year. If you start in January to get to the next year, don't start in January until you have an in-service training time. Now, what are we going to deal with in in-service training? Usually a Friday night. It's good to have a little banquet for them maybe, a supper, furnish a nursery if you have to. You want adults in there only. Don't have children. It is a work time. You're going to train them in in-service training on the philosophy of your Sunday school. What is a teacher? What is a church? Use the videos and video training if you're necessary. Use the parts if you have to. This has a multi-purpose. That's the reason we have prepared it this way. And so use it. Get your teachers, workers, trained in it. Okay? What is a church? You train them in that. Train them in the philosophy of the teacher. Thoroughly explain the record system. Thoroughly review. You have filled in your blank calendar. Thoroughly review the calendar and make sure they understand every aspect about your Sunday school year. You know what you've done? Watch. How many times do we get up and announce, I've got a growth campaign coming up, I got a big day coming up, and what do our members do? I got a revival coming up, I've got this coming up, big day for the youth, and they say, man, I've already got vacation scheduled. You know the problem there? They need a calendar in advance so they can plan their family activities around it. You're going to eliminate 95% of all of that of people that are exiting and people that cannot participate. They want to, but they've already made other plans. And it's our fault for not giving them a calendar. Do that in in-service training. So you're going to train the record system in-service training. You're going to explain you got big days. You're going to go over the whole calendar. You're going to answer questions, and you're going to explain the record system. And you're going to go over the calendar, and you're going to explain the record system. Notice the redundancy here. Listen, we must understand the structure of the Sunday school. They must understand their function of the Sunday school. Listen, they need to have a calendar and understand how to read it and keep up with it. In addition to that, they must also understand the record system. It's simple. You'll find that out in the next lesson. But they must understand it. Now, you've trained them in the functions. You say, well, they've been in here before. They need it over and over and over. In fact, I'll tell you, it wouldn't hurt to do this almost once every 3 months until we get our whole core together. And everybody is functioning together. Whether it be 5 workers and teachers, 10 workers and teachers. Think with me for a little bit. I want you to think about 20 workers and teachers, 30 workers and teachers. What would be wrong with having 50 workers and teachers? Group captains and teachers. Remember, the group captain is a teacher that does everything but teach. All the functions. So you get these people working, you got 50, you've got the potential to run 500 in Sunday school with just 50 workers that have a calendar, that had in-service training, that are treated like good, mature Christians, treated like adults. They're run efficiently. They got an annual calendar. They understand the record system. The structure is in place. Hey, it's ready for an explosion.